Episode 120, God, Country, and Family, starring bull rider, baseball pitcher, soldier, and patriot Wylie McGraw. Welcome back to the Men to Mastery podcast, the show where I interview experts and high-level performers from multiple personal and professional domains to help improve ourselves. As you guys know, it's a constant process and really a never-ending journey. To that end, funny story, I was recently called arrogant and shallow. I really don't think I've ever been called shallow before, but arrogant, well, I'd like to think I'm one of the more humble people out there, but I'll take it. I'll take it because I admit I definitely have a chip on my shoulder when it comes to working on myself, when it comes to holding myself to a higher standard. Everything is me versus me, and I am protective as hell of myself, of my family, of my time, of my energy, and about the caliber of people I'm willing to surround myself with. And look, when I say family, I also mean those high quality, high caliber friends who are as much family as anyone else. If you're in that circle, you know I am your biggest fan and I will be your biggest cheerleader and supporter. So this episode really is all about exactly that, the importance of that community that is so important in battle-proofing your life for performance now and for taking action to prepare for what may come. So I'd like you to listen to this episode today with an ear to whether you are prepared or preparing, whether you're an asset or a liability, and whether you're ready to explore the uncomfortable, to take action, and to trust and surrender yourself to the process. All right, hey, today it's my pleasure to welcome Wylie McGraw, performance accelerator, professional or competitive bull rider in his past, former star pitcher, 3-tour, maybe 4-tour coming up, combat veteran, Army, SF community, all kinds of stuff, but really interesting guy. Wylie, welcome to the show. Looking forward to talking today. Pleasure to have you.
Yeah, brother. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's been a little time. I apologize to you off air of actually getting this thing together. It's one I've been looking forward to for a while. You got some just really interesting past. I love the work you do. You know, you're the guy that works with pro athletes, CEOs, entrepreneurs, all these sort of high performers in life in, maybe I'm going to say this the wrong way, kind of getting them to the next level. And that's one of the first things I just want to dive right in and ask you about. Looking at your
Yeah.
material, one of the things you say is why high achievement is not enough and how to accelerate into high performance. What's the difference?
Well, first, I didn't just jump into the realm of working with leaders and working with these significant folks that have a lot of influence and impact. It naturally evolved from there because of getting to the basics of who I am once I got out of the military. So I just want to throw that out for the audience. Is like, people hear that and go, why does he only work with leaders? Why not just, helping everybody as much as he possibly can? And it's fine. There are folks out there that are built for that. I discovered over the years of doing my work, not only on myself, but then understanding my own gift, if you will. Yeah, I was made for at a higher level, higher intensity level for these types of people that can handle what it is specifically they need to go to that next level. Because we're all at a different level of capacity. So expecting the small business owner to be able to perform under the type of tasks you would ask them to do or challenges you put them through as let's say the successful CEO of a billion-dollar company is going to be completely different. Not everybody can handle those things. So that just to throw that in there for you, Michael. But the reality is I've discovered through being military, in sports is one world, but being in the military specifically, going to war, learning and understanding the difference between achievement and performance changed my outlook on life itself. It really helped me understand how we approach what we do and who we are in relationship, not only to ourselves, but to others in the things that we set out to accomplish. What I have found is, especially working for 14 years with some of these higher level people, some celebrities, some athletes, whatever their job is, it really is irrelevant. It's really just these high capacity people who have influence, is that most of them have gotten lost in the grind of getting things done to create those byproducts, which are the money, the notoriety, the fame, and the growth. But they have circumvented or often sacrificed the other element of their life to get there. They have let their performance in relationships, if you will, and I use that word with quotes, suffer inexplicably sometimes, unnecessarily often. What they've done is they have basically said, well, I want to go get things done. I'm going to achieve as much as I can, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to buy my way out of the problems that I'm sweeping under the rug. So when I started to see this contrast working with these people intimately behind the scenes, one-on-one, I live with them, I travel with them, I'm with them upwards of a year. I only work with 2 people, maybe 3 years, very intimate. I see the inner workings of their entire life, their family dynamics, their personal dynamics, their health, things they don't show the public, things they don't even show their own business partners. What's really interesting is that they have been caught up in the world of checking boxes, getting stuff done, and achieving things, and their personal performance, which means who you are in relationship to yourself at any given moment, it changes on a day-to-day basis. That has been lacking. So when you marry the two, you realize getting things done, okay, great, you can get things done. We can all achieve if we drive hard, grind, push through adversity and challenge, we can get stuff done. But performance itself, high performance, is your ability to stay at a state of optimization on a daily basis. It doesn't mean you're going to not have bad days. It doesn't mean you're not going to be angry and frustrated. It doesn't mean you're not going to be depressed and get irritated about life. It just means you have a new set point you have developed through the stretching of that capacity by understanding that achievement is not everything. Sometimes you are hurting yourself more trying to make that next $1 million than you realize. Sometimes sacrificing that business thing that's going on, that's taking you away from family, from your faith, from your health, all of that is not worth it in the long run. That short-term satisfaction is not worth it. So we hear it time and time again, is the, what do they call it, instant gratification that we're all used to. If you change your outlook towards how you perform in life, you will be focused more on what keeps you as a human being optimal, and then what you do then becomes optimized, rather than focusing on optimizing your achievement, just getting things done, and then trying to turn around and figure out how to fix it later with the money you've made, or maybe the followers that you've built on X, or on your social media profile. So that's the stark difference in a long-winded version of it. Is getting things done has nothing to do with who you are and how you perform in your life. How you perform in your life, however, does impact how you get things done and how much you create.
I'm following you. Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, I think that over-indexing on achievement, the checking the boxes, the promotion, the dollars in the bank, or whatever it is,
right,
leads to that imbalance.
Right.
Whereas work on the holistic performance yields the achievements and a broader list of achievements, right? You can stay more balanced. You can have the relational achievements. You can have the relational success along with the career success, along with the family success, all that.
It's very possible. Yeah. And just throwing the military aspect of it, people will say, well, what about, guys in the military that are in the special operations community? They're the highest performers possible. 100% they are, acutely. Right. So if you break it down, when they come home, are their lives at that level on a daily basis? Do they have the health that they want, the balanced relationships with their partners? Are they in a place where their peace is a true set point internally, no matter chaos they experience? Most of them, they can't objectively say yes. However, it doesn't mean they're not high performers. They're just doing it acutely. I would say if you can get to a place where, like you said, indexing yourself, going, you know what? How much more could I get done that's more profoundly beneficial to others if my life is actually in a good place?
Yeah.
And if I put that as my standard, what happens then when I turn around and I execute upon that? That's the difference.
Yeah, no, I personally find that, and some of these conversations kind of lead us down the same path, that getting better at being yourself makes you better at everything else that you do or endeavor to do.
Right.
So a couple of things just leading down, let's go further down the kind of the military path. One of the things I saw on your website, just poking around, it looks like you've got a little teaser out there about a professional relationship you had with I believe an NFL coach who was looking for some help on leadership, probably went looking kind of the standard, let me bring in a veteran or an SF type of guy and teach me leadership. And that wasn't working for him for some reason. I'm curious, what wasn't working? What did work with you?
So I meet all my clients through third-party referral. Everything has always been relationship oriented. So someone says, hey, your life, you've been doing something different. Who you working with? Typically, here's the guy. I'll bring him to the private event, the party, the mastermind, the conference. So that's how I typically met these people. It's never been through like they find me on the internet and they're going to Google me and they're going to hire me right over the phone. So again, these people don't typically do that at all whatsoever. So the person that introduced us was she was in publicity, like public affairs for athletes and celebrities. And we had known each other for a few years, just some stuff that we ran across each other, the work I do. And I think at a conference, but she goes, "Hey, I've got a friend of mine who he works at professional football, and he's done stuff with guys like David Goggins, and he loves the military. He's a big military supporter. He loves what you guys are all about. However, I told him I kind of got a guy that goes beyond just the military approach to, human development." He said, "Look, I'm still lagging in somewhere in my life because something's going on with my performance at work. We're having a hard time. I'm hard time motivating the guys. Like there's something funky missing. Maybe an energy that's off, whatever it is." She's like, "Well, I got a guy. I'm happy to just make the introduction." So we ended up having a phone call and we talked, and then we got together, broke some bread. And he's like, "Look, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix what I don't see is actually the problem." He goes, "I've had all these other, military style type coaches that wake me up at 4 a.m. They do all this routine stuff. They get my mindset right. They get me to a place where it's like I have that grit and that drive. However, there's something underlying there that I'm not seeing that these guys couldn't hit. I just feel like maybe I don't know, something's about what we've been talking about, what you're saying, what you're about, how you sound different than what they typically say to me. Let's do it. I want to work with you. Let's figure something out." So I ended up actually spending, I think, 7 months with this guy, 6 or 7 months with this guy in total. And it's amazing is what we found out is the personal relationship dynamics he was dealing with at home were having an impact on his professional performance at work. But the blind spots in those dynamics, those are usually the biggest culprits to why we suffer and why we have issues when it comes to things that are external of ourselves. However, what we do is we hire people like those military coaches to bring in strategies and protocols from an outside in approach. We go, "Well, I'm a guy who I studied 20 years of how we do X, and I'm going to bring in these solutions to you to problem solve your, surface level issue. So you're not getting your guys to do X, Y, Z in your, when you're training them. Here's what we're going to do to change that up. You are going to show up differently this way. You're going to exercise this way. You're going to be this way, and then you're going to expect this way." Okay, great. Those are good strategies to put in place, but they do not address the deeper personal things that he might be carrying around or dealing with. He's not actually faced head on. So what I found was by showing up and spending 5 days with him at his house in the first initial part of a relationship, so much erupted in the relationships he was having that I got to see the truth about where he was actually dealing with stress that was leaking into his performance at work. Those are the things we attacked. It's like I can get you up at 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to get you up at 4 to still go after and make those things right. So that's what he needed, somebody to truly mimic or match his personal life with his professional life. He needed to bring that up to the same speed, if you will, up to snuff. And he wasn't getting that with other people he was hiring. He loved what he did, but the reality was like, I need someone who can kick my ass, excuse my French, in the right way, who can see the ugly stuff that I don't really want to look at and put it in my face and make me do something about it, but also have someone that knows how to be in the trenches to do it alongside me. Not tell me to do it and then walk away and come back to me next week and say how to go. It's like, hey, you're right by my side as we're going through it, like a battle buddy in the trenches. Here's how we're fighting that war and killing that demon. And this is what you start to naturally experience things changing organically for you because you feel different. You show up differently. And that's what changed his approach to his coaching, which it really alleviated a lot of issues with his team function.
That's really interesting.
That
helps. Couple things that really land for me on that. One is, drawing a couple parallels here between top athletes. This guy was a coach for top athletes, right? Pro athletes, and maybe, top performers in the military. Both are very physical realms, right? And we get comfortable in the physical discomfort, right? And may shy away from the discomfort of relational work or other deeper personal work or the work at home. And the other thing, just thinking even back to what you said before about acute success, there's a huge divorce rate with SF. Certainly, any deployed troops go through that. That is a struggle or a challenge. So you take somebody who's maybe really, really good. Let's say somebody who's really, really good at their professional military career, trying to help somebody who's really, really good at their professional sports career. but both may be really, really bad at their personal lives, right?
Right.
And it
Right.
sounds like that was the blind spot for this particular guy.
Big one. It was a big one. And the reality is he never, a lot of those guys, again, there's nothing wrong with them. And I want people to hear that I don't go out and have conversations bashing any of these people that are doing what they're doing. Their efforts do create some results. They create momentum for people. And there are people that are built to only take on and that's good. If that works for you, go get it. The reality is there are people out there going, I want more than, again, the strategy of the mental and physical grit. I want something that really becomes deeper and more intimate and more holistic and very unorthodox towards making me a better version of myself. So that the reality was he was missing that and he was craving that. He just didn't know it until he heard it. So that's the thing is, hey, I'm hearing you say things I've never heard before and I like it. I'm leaning. As much as it scares me, it makes me realize you're going to do things to me that I am unaware of you're going to do to me. I know that that's where the challenges that are going to make me better are that's where they lie. And that's why he jumped in. So I think that's what people are missing too, is we're so hell-bent on controlling the narrative of how our coaches coach us, how we approach business and any other thing that we do, with like the types of things we want to do. We find people hiring the yes men because they don't like the unknowns. Human beings do not like the unknown. However, I heard a quote once before, I'm trying to remember, it's McGill, I think it was his name, is if we fear the unknown, surely then we fear ourselves. And we realize is like when you can adapt yourself to the unknown, a lot of magic lies in the ambiguity of life. If you think about it, it's like he was also missing, he's Christian. He was like, look, I haven't been as faithful to my faith as I usually am. He's like, and you really helped me get back to the roots of that and realize, you know what, there's a lot of this matters. Surrendering my need to be self-reliant totally on just, I've got it all figured out, allowed him to open up more of his capacity to see those blind spots and actually be able to handle the challenges to battle them and get through them rather than avoiding them, what men do.
Man, you said a lot there.
Yeah, I hope that was okay.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm gonna take you down a weird path or thought I had on that.
Yes.
So you mentioned faith, right? And we were talking a little bit offline about where we're at as a country, where we're at as a world, a culture, and needing to get back to some fundamentals, some roots, some basics. Faith being a big part of that. And one of the other things I know we're going to tee up here is I want to talk to you about what may be next for you and your next chapter, possibly back in the Army SF community. But on the faith piece, right? When you look at the state of the world today, or I'll just say it, from my side and ask you what you think. It's hard for me to imagine that the things I see are ultimately about only wealth and power. Certainly, there's a lot of that goes on,
right.
but it's
right.
I mean, wealth and power are finite, and there are people that already have a near infinite amount of it, right? That how much more do you really need if you're, I don't know, Klaus Schwab or Zuckerberg or the Rothschilds or whoever it may be, right?
Yep.
And so beyond that, why do we see so many of the things we see? I have a hard time talking myself out of anything other than we're truly in a spiritual battle for this realm of good and evil ultimately.
Yes. 100%. You want my thoughts on that?
Thoughts, yeah, please.
Yeah. If you objectively look with an open mind, like you just said, so people that step back a little bit more, pull yourself away from maybe your own personal worldview and get away from the subjective beliefs that you might carry still in this moment, which is fine because we're supposed to be challenged to change our rate or stretch our beliefs. So if you can step back and objectively look at what's going on, you would actually kind of go, okay, something funkier is going on here. Something more radical and more intense and more otherworldly is happening because the rise in now how everybody suddenly is transgender. Everybody is suddenly, it's all about greed, money, power, and wealth. Everything seems to be just falling apart at the seams with the borders crisis and politicians and the wars. And it's almost like biblical, if you will. It's really, really crazy to look at and say, well, this is just what happens. Human beings just cause these problems. And, we have been in this place before. We've never been in a position we're in right now, ever in the history, ever of societies or, organized societies ever since. And I've heard it from even a pastor is like, since, the flood of Noah or the time of Adam and Eve, it's like, it's been so radical what's going on. And regardless of what people believe, I've had friends that I know that aren't really big believers are like, you know what, I think I maybe need to consider it, because this is definitely not what we can just chalk up to being normal mental health issues or normal dysfunction of society where people are just differences of opinions. It's literally trying to make men, women, men. That's just like, it doesn't work. So there is a massive spiritual war going on. And I think that the problem is people have a hard time, human beings, truly. This is why I think a lot of people reject Christ. They reject God, the idea of it, all of it, is because they don't want to be obedient to something bigger than themselves. They have a hard time with following what they deem to be restrictive rules. So they don't explore what any of that actually means. They don't get into the relationship aspect of God and go, you know what? Let me learn what he's trying to teach me, what I'm missing here. Everybody just wants to be the manifester of their own reality, to do whatever they want, however they want to do it. That is where the evil comes in and starts to influence people and get them to do things they're unaware they're being influenced. So that's what I would say. Those are my thoughts on it, is people don't realize how badly they're being influenced by things that okay, you like porn, you like drugs, you like the alcohol, you like the gambling, you like the money, that's good. Stay there. And then if somebody challenges you, tell them, these are my rights, I can do whatever I want. Who are you to judge? And then I like the people that don't believe turn around and go and try to quote scripture and tell us, your judgment, who are you to judge? Jesus wouldn't do this. And it's like, okay, but you don't even believe in Jesus. So at the end of the day, like, what are we doing here? But I've had atheists, I've had non-believers literally tell me, like, I think I need to start going to church. Something's not right here. And reality is we are going through a massive eruption on a spiritual level, and it's going to get worse. And I think people are going to be woken up rudely, but I don't think a lot of them are going to be prepared for it. And that's why it's like, we have to get people prepared for it. We've got to get leaders, men, people out in the world to be pillars for our communities, so they can bring people back to choose a side, because at this point it is a war. You're either with the good guys or you're with the bad guys. There's no neutral. There's no being in the middle ground and thinking, if you're not with the good, you are with the bad. And those are my thoughts on that.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get into some of this idea of coming crisis, potentially, maybe probably, and some preparation, things like that. But a couple just wrap up thoughts on that topic. You've got a podcast, right? Wise Words and Whiskey. I love the name. I certainly enjoy a bourbon from time to time. But I was talking to a buddy over the summer in Colorado, and I just said, at the time I was doing another round of 75 hard, so zero alcohol amongst other things for 75 days, and I go, dude, it's not to judge it, right? But I think it's interesting to question things, right? Challenge ourselves, challenge our beliefs, challenge our construct. And I would challenge myself, and I challenged him to think about, what good does the alcohol industry do for you, for us? Little, probably zero, right? And I mean, the downfalls are obvious, but is there something deeper there? Is that, amongst all the other things you mentioned, and internet and social media and TV, all these things keeping us kind of idling in a place where our focus needs to be somewhere else? What things actually move us forward? And certainly that's not one of them.
These are great questions. These are great thoughts, questions, et cetera, because there's so much to unpack with it. Number one, I love it. It does. These industries are, people can argue all day long. It's all about how you approach them. Absolutely. So you and I can sit down and have a glass of bourbon. I guarantee I'm going to pour maybe one finger, and I'm going to sip it with you, and I'm going to be done. And then the next time I'm going to have a glass of whiskey, maybe 2-3 months later. And I don't drink that much at all. And I spent eight years not drinking, period. So those industries specifically are designed to distract us. They're designed, there is evil behind it. It's designed to, like you say, keep us idle, keep us not focused on what really matters, and keep us in a state of altered reality. The problem is, you can utilize these things if you, the person, going back to our initial part of the conversation, is your personal performance is in a good place. If you are at a good set point where you have literally worked through whatever addictive qualities you might possess, whatever mental weaknesses you have, whatever emotional instability that might be there, you've gone to a place where you have an evolved state of being. you might be able to sit down with you and I and have a little sip of whiskey and not let that become, let's have another one and another one and another one. And then you drink. As a Catholic is, what we talk about is past the point of hilarity. That's being drunk. That is you slipping into the realm where now you are giving access to the demonic because you are no longer coherently in yourself, completely protected. So that point of hilarity is like, most people don't like that. They like the feeling good, it's like, it makes me feel good. I like it. What's wrong with that? If it makes you feel good, you should be able to do it. And that is exactly what those industries want you to feel. They want you to rely on emotion. They want you to rely on things that are comfortable. They give you that sense of peace temporarily on the inside. But the reality is, how many people get drunk on a daily basis, wake up the next day going, I'm so at peace today. I feel so good. My life improved because of that binger I went on last night. Right? How many people can truly sit there and say that I'm peaceful, happy, fulfilled, and truly at a place of like knowing life is good without God? How many people can truly objectively? I guarantee most people I've met, people I've worked with, none of them are happy. None of them. They might pretend in their head they are happy. Look at me, I got the things, but the reality is they go to bed at night fried, they're miserable, they're in pain, they suffer, and then they suppress it and suck it up, and they utilize those industries to help kind of quell the problem. So I challenge the notion that there's nothing wrong with these things, because they make you feel good. I challenge people to challenge themselves to fast more, allow themselves to, what do we call it? We call it die to the self, but the reality is it's almost, how about sacrificing that thing for now? Like you did 75 days. How about you take a chance, take a week off from everything that you do on a daily basis. Don't take creatine, don't drink caffeine, don't drink alcohol. Take a week. Be willing to move through the urges to satiate that feeling. And that's the key, that you can start there, you can build upon that. That in itself will strip away so much of your own dysfunction or blind spots you're unaware of. That's what I do with clients. It's like, we're going to strip you away from everything. And I'm going to be with you while you go through the pains of it. But the reality is, it's amazing how you cleanse yourself that way, and you start to become more speaking two words together, the clarity and clarification that you get become more profound for you. So you're able to start objectively seeing things that people are saying to you in a different way. You start to interpret stuff that in a way you never thought was possible. And then you start to open yourself up and your beliefs change, and you go, you know what? Wow, that actually was hurting me more than I thought it was. I had a celebrity client, a gal that she was on a binge of like psychedelics, man. And I'm going to tell you, it's like, you want to talk to avoid the pressures of being in the spotlight. She had nobody that ever helped hold her into that space to work through those problems. And it's amazing. Had dinner with her one night, and the disheveled version of her in front of me. She's like, "You're right. I let her do it." I said, she kept fighting. He goes, fine. That's my work with you, is I'm going to fight you. I'm going to battle you and fight you, period, all the way through it. I let her have it. I just said, just stay in touch. She did it for a few weeks, called me, goes, can we meet and have dinner? I gotta tell you what's going on. And then she said, look, you're right. You were right 100%. She goes, this is damaging me more than it's helping me break through my problems. I keep having bad experiences because I have not done any enough work on myself to even manage smoking a little pot, or manage drinking a little bit of alcohol, or manage myself in psychedelics. So this is the problem that people have, man, is we're not doing the right work and getting to the roots of who we are. And we're not connecting to something greater than ourselves, like God, outside of ourselves, to help with that peace and that protection we need. We're heavily relying on the self, and we're also idolizing other people as our gods and going, let me follow that person. Nobody's really finding peace and happiness. You can have all the money in the world, you can have all the success in the world, but dude, what's it worth if you yourself are miserable at home and you don't have the peace you really long for? And it's only possible if you're willing to surrender and go, I need something greater than me. And that's the piece that's missing.
I'll share something I heard from a Canadian buddy. Back to something you mentioned on alcohol specifically. He I don't think he drinks anymore, but at the time he said, I'll occasionally have a hard kombucha or a beer or a wine, but he said, I can't drink hard alcohol. He goes, my experience with it is I become a different person and not a better person, right? And he said, I think there's a reason they call it spirits. I really feel like it opens the door for something to take hold of you that's really not you, right? Not a good spirit by any means.
Demons are spirits too.
Yeah,
It's like, what
exactly.
do you mean spirits? People say I'm spiritual. Well, demons are spirits too. Which one are you talking about? Because
Right. Which one do you want?
it's they exist too simultaneously. It's not like you're just tapping into one side of things and avoiding the other. But yeah,
Yeah.
that is a good point. I did it with gluten. I was gluten insensitive because I ate too much of it growing up. So my wife was like, "You're allergic to it. I can see it." And I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Just try this." I said, "Okay, I'm open. I'm just an open guy. I will try it and give it a go, and I'm happy to do it." I took 2 weeks off of all grains, all gluten, all of it. And when I ate a piece of bread that had gluten in it 2 weeks later, my nose started snotting up. I started to get itchy. So it was a perfect test to that you just talked about with your friend. He stopped, he started to touch it, and he was like, "Look at it. I can see the truth of how it's affecting me, how that'll affect my performance, how that will affect my ability to get things done, how it will affect my relationships, how it will parlay into so much of our lives." But people are so distracted and they're so sucked into it, they don't have anybody that pulls them out of it the right way. They're lost. It's almost the blind leading the blind. Last thought for you, and then we keep rock and rolling. But
Yeah.
there is as I've been learning, there is for the pharmaceutical industry, there is a demon called pharmaca. And literally its name is what I've been learning about. Like, you watch a bunch of exorcists that are putting out these videos on YouTube. They'll talk about these things, and it kind of makes you you think about it. You go, wait a minute, pharmaceuticals. What are we doing to each other? What do we? There's something evil there going on. I mean, I had surgery on my wrist that you and I talking about. I didn't take any opioids. I just did a nerve block, had them cut me open, take the plates out, no pain medicine afterwards. Knowing your body and knowing how to manage and handle pain, utilizing faith, your mind, your meditations, your prayers are more relieving for pain than taking a drug, because it keeps me in a good state and not in an altered state. I'm not willing to do that to myself because my standards matter. So I think if people hear that and go, wow, okay, I couldn't do that. Well, maybe you can. You just never been pushed and faced and put in a position to challenge yourself to do it. And you and I are talking about do it. Give yourself a little try. You'd be surprised what might change with you.
Yeah, I'll take you down another brief rabbit hole for a
Sure.
moment, and it's in the same spirit of industry and addiction, and we don't know what we don't know. So on the
Right.
gluten thing, right? My
Yeah.
wife is, I believe, very gluten sensitive. She has a bad sort of gut and bloating and just overall feeling reaction to things like pasta and a lot of
Right.
breads. And I just don't eat a lot
Excuse
of
me.
it either because I don't have the same feeling, but I have a similar, not so positive feeling with a lot of processed carbs and kind of breads and pastas
Yeah.
specifically. So
Yeah.
we were just in Europe this past summer, and my wife was just like laughing at me every single day because every morning I was eating fresh sourdough bread like it was going out of style. We were in
Amazing.
Denmark. I was literally eating the Danish, right? And like everything I could get my hands on, and I felt
Yep.
great. I enjoyed it. I came back 5 pounds lighter, probably because we walked a lot, but also, right. So it's like, what's going on there? I wanted to challenge that a little bit, and I started
Yep.
looking into Italian pasta. They use pretty much just flour and water, and it's organic wheat flour, grown locally, right? And that's it. And then if you go look at what's in pretty much any pasta here, it's most for the most part not organic. So you don't know what other chemicals and crap is in there. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the flour, right? We've got this
Yep.
enriched flour with niacin and all these other things. I mean, part of it was about birth defects. We believed folic acid or folate, whatever's in there, right?
Hmm.
Well, I'm not going to have a baby, although apparently some men now believe they can, right? Like,
Right.
and my wife's not having any more kids. Like, why do I need
Yeah.
to eat
Yeah.
this crap? If
Yeah.
that was the purpose, why do I need it? And so it
Yeah.
was
It's weird.
unbelievably hard. I was about to go import a bunch of pasta from Italy, right? Like I
Smart.
just literally can't even find this non-enriched flour here. And then I was actually walking out of Sprouts Market a couple weeks ago, and they just had their end cap display there by the register. I picked up the Sprouts pasta, and it's actually imported from Italy. They've got an organic version, and it's just whatever the wheat is
You can
from
find it.
Italy and
Yep.
water.
Yep.
Boom. I
Yep.
brought it home. We tried it. My wife's like, I feel great. No problems at all. So like even just diving into little things like that and challenging, does it have to be the way that it is? Well, maybe not.
No, that's a great. I think it's a great anecdote as well. You had your own personal experience with it, but it also does have its broad efficacy, if you will, across the board. Now, I hear people say, we've been eating bread for thousands of years. It's like, yeah, but look how we're producing the bread. Look how we're producing the wheat. The gluten molecule is a binding protein. That's what makes wheat sticky. It's a big protein. And what's interesting is even the distillation process, talk about whiskey, the gluten molecule can't pass through certain parts of the distillation process. So technically, I'm not going to say this because I'm not an expert, but most spirits can technically be seen low gluten, if you will.
Okay.
So what's interesting is I have a friend of mine, his celiac disease. He can go, his family's from Italy. He can fly to Italy to go where his parents are from, go eat the pasta, has zero, literally, celiac, it'll kill you if you eat it. He goes over and eats their pasta, doesn't have any problems. And it shows you the contrast of what we are doing over here to our food at the expense of our health, because there's an evil, sinister thing going on here. The food industry wants you sick. You rely on pharmaceuticals. You rely on the medical industry. It's a business. It's a 100% a business. That binding protein, our bodies have a hard time digesting because of how it's agro grown. The wheat stalk itself used to be thicker. In Italy, if you probably noticed, it's their wheat's thicker over there, and there's a reason why. It's because it's not agro farmed. Our agro farmed wheat over here is thinner, which then causes the plant to produce more gluten to protect itself. It's kind of like cannabis does the same thing. Everybody talks about all the THC that kind of buds onto the flowers. And again, I don't smoke, and I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying go do it, but it has that stuff, and that's the plant protecting itself from sunlight. It's designed also to protect itself from pests and things like that. It's the byproduct of its own reaction, its own performance, if you will, to nature. So it's crazy how you can take that wheat you and I are talking about, and you can literally parlay that into all aspects of life because it's all interconnected. How are you allowing yourself to experience the different elements you bring into your life, from your foods to the supplements, to the way you work out, to your health, your regimen, to your relationships, your mindset, how you read, how you study? All of it can go back and be tested and challenged and stretched and changed. You got to realize that just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Just because you have a right to do something doesn't mean you should do it either. It doesn't mean it's just that the doctor tells you X, go get a second opinion. It's, why not?
Yeah,
what matters to you more?
I would argue that there's so much of what we've been told and sold that is somewhere on the spectrum from wrong to plain nefarious, right? That it's worth challenging almost everything.
Right. You should ask questions. I mean, you should just keep asking, and ask as many questions as you need to. And if someone gets upset at you, so what? You know what, doc? I don't care. I'm paying you a lot of money. I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm going to get everything I can. And you know what happens is, here's what I would love your audience to hear too, for business and life in general, is sometimes just pushing a little bit more and asking that extra question, you'll finally get the truth. I think we end up, like you said, the norm is we're taught to only go so far and to then retract. People will have where, hey brother, do you want to do X? No. Oh, okay. I'm just giving, that's a weak example, but why not go, hey brother, why? Let's talk about what's coming up for you. Why do you reject that idea? Why do you want to, you know what? Okay, here's the truth. And they might end up giving you the real reason. Doctors will do that. Your friends will do that. Your family will do that. Sometimes it's like, you know what? Let me sit with this a little bit longer and let me push just a little further, because maybe I'm not getting all of the information I should be getting right now. And if I allow myself to push through that adversity, that no, or that rejection, I might finally get at least a little bit of information I've been wanting or needing that will then inform me further on what actions to take next. And I think that's where people can also challenge themselves, is stop just taking the initial reaction of someone as the end all be all to the situation or conversation. Push it. You'll find whether or not you should continue to push it, but you'll start to intuitively know, okay, here's where I back off, or here's where, no, I'm not going to back off. I'm going to come after you a little bit more, because we need to. There's a reason why we're doing this, you know?
Well, let's challenge another one of these sort of global businesses, if you will, and holding that there may be multiple things true at any given time, right? So we're talking about maybe definitely we're in a spiritual battle for this world. For example, you probably saw the article. I think it was in Iowa, like in the state capitol. They
Yep.
had like
Yep.
a demon display or a
Yeah.
Baphomet or
Satanic.
whatever,
Yep.
satanic.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
some guy tore it down.
Navy vet.
Navy
Chopped his head
vet,
off.
and that guy's being charged with something.
Yep.
It's crazy. So at the same time, that perhaps is this a man-made battle or is it a spiritual battle? It can certainly be both, right? I acknowledge that there are those who will probably take advantage or may have created some of this situation. The whole sort of fifth dimensional warfare. How much disinformation or
Sure.
cultural erosion are we getting from, let's say, China or Russia or some other party? So, for example,
Yep.
an army buddy of mine we were talking one day recently at kids soccer, and he says, I'm reading some history and some stuff from military strategists that just talk about how unique the U.S. is as this North American continent, so far from that superpower in Asia and then Europe and Russia, that it's practically impossible to do like a Red Dawn style invasion on the U.S.
Mm.
And I said, I disagree. I get the concept, but I think it's already happened. Like we're already living Red
Right.
Dawn. It's not people parachuting in. It is actually people literally crossing the border right now. A lot of bad
Right.
people, along with a
Right.
lot of good people seeking a better life. But it's streaming in through the internet, right? It's streaming in through everything we see and hear. And so where I'm going with that, beyond, are we being attacked by other humans, by other military power, and or the spiritual battle? You mentioned off air that you're considering going back into the special forces community, and I'd really love to hear a little bit more about that. I feel like it's just from my view of what is happening. So as a civilian, having not served, but grew up with a dad who was a Vietnam vet, Army captain, looking
Thank
at
him.
the state.
For his service. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Looking at the state of our country, our culture, what I read about the military culture and leadership, and then what the mission for our soldiers abroad or domestically might be. What's drawing you back to that?
I'll touch on briefly to start the answer for this is talk about a spiritual wake up for me. I'm in my mid 40s, so it's not like I woke up one day and was like, I'm a veteran. So I want to be clear too, just, it's like I was in the combat arms. I was the light infantry with the 187 infantry out of the 101st Airborne Division. So I wasn't a Green Beret, but yet that is where I'm being asked to go serve. So just want to make sure that's clarified, given it's my community, and I want to, everything does matter in the community as well, especially the clarity of what we did. But nevertheless, I wasn't in combat. I was engaged in combat, did 3 tours overseas. So post 9/11, obviously GWAT, the whole 9 yards. I woke up and I told my wife, and I said, what? I had this intense life-altering dream. I can't explain what it was. It's almost like God was showing me something in my dream. And I told her, I said, I went and I prayed on it. She goes, do you think maybe this is just the nostalgia of missing the military? You've been talking to a lot of military guys lately. You've been on podcasts with a lot of military guys, Andy Stump, et cetera. And I was like, you know what? I miss the military. We all miss the military. Nobody's ever going to tell you I don't miss it. It's just part of who we are. I miss doing those really high speed things. I miss, doing the operations we did. I said, no, something is not, something's here. Let's explore this. So months go by. I keep having these dreams where I'm basically back in a small unit working in a special operations community. And I'm just doing all of this different, very clear stuff that is related to the conversations I had been having with some colonels and some people I know that are still in, buddies of mine that are in group, guys of mine that are SEALs, things like that. And I'm going, you know what? Given the fact that our military is eroded from the inside out, given the fact that we do have people focus more on DEI and not on warfighting, we have woke ideologies, regardless of people's beliefs, but that's what's happening. We have this dysfunction that is literally infiltrated through the military in this more communistic approach that is eroding leadership from the top down, and it's causing us to look like this very weak, frail entity. We are no longer respected as this once mighty military as short as 20 years ago. I spent 4 or 5 months kind of having these dreams, and I was like, something in my heart is telling me I need to consider serving again, because we need to bring back that military grit and might back to the warfighter. We need to inspire Americans to still instill trust in the military and knowing that we need one if we want to maintain the liberties and the lifestyles and the ways in which we appreciate and want and value in our culture here in America. We are being challenged and we are being basically fought from the inside out. We're kind of destroying ourselves, and we are watching a veteran community. God bless them. I love them to death, all of them. But I have been watching so many of them on social media, all these big name people that everybody follows, legacy military guys going, no, I will not promote the military. No, you need to avoid military service. No, stay away from it. It's just a globalist agenda. No, it's all about politics. It's all about money. And I go, yeah, I get that. You and I talked about it off screen here. Was the military industrial complex has been there for the politicians and the greed and the war, the warmongers. It's never, ever not been there. It has always been a part of who we are. We have just been less exposed to it over the generations until now. Now that aspect, that monster is reared his head. He's in the front, but it does not negate the patriotic duty to protect and defend freedom for future generations. My grandfathers did in World War II. My uncles did in Vietnam and Korea. My stepfather did in Desert Storm. Me and my brother served in GWAT. So it's like, who's next? If we don't find a way to challenge, using that word a lot in this conversation, and battle it from the inside and rebuild it and get it back to a place of respect, honor, integrity, and discipline and warfighter capabilities, we're not going to make another conflict. We're not going to make it. We're going to watch we're going to be another Rome, if you will. And I don't want to be radical about that, sound a little bit too hyperbole if sense. But the truth is, the reason why I feel like I'm being drawn to it is there are a lot of guys that faith is missing in the ranks. There are a lot of people that they're in there for the wrong reasons. These younger generations are doing it for maybe the idea of getting some benefits. Their immigrants are doing it to get their green cards and their status is changed. And again, there's nothing wrong if you have those motivations. Nobody's in it like what we were in it for. And I would challenge all those veterans out there that are saying, do not join the military. Go, why not? Why not? Politicians are going to always be greedy. We're always going to fight wars partly for them and what they're doing. But why not? Do you expect the United States to sustain a low, dysfunctional, broken military and still be the superpower and be the beacon of hope and faith and freedom for the rest of the world if we don't have people worth their salt, willing to step up and get into the fight? I think the problem is we're too caught up in the corruption of, again, Biden, the border, Ukraine, Israel now, etc. We're too caught up in the money, too caught up in the politics. We're too caught up in one side of it. We've lost our sight on what it means to be Americans, what it means to actually sacrifice and actually serve selflessly for others. We're very selfish. We're very broken as a society. And I think a lot of veterans are just very soured because of how poorly they've been taken care of post-combat. I got buddies that might have 11 to 15 combat tours. I've only got 3. And it's like, that 3's enough. I've seen enough death and destruction. That's plenty, but I get it. So I would say this to kind of cap it here. I'm feeling more divinely drawn to do it. Doesn't mean I'm not, realizing what I'm going to be stepping back into. Okay. I understand what I'm getting myself into. However, that's why the recruiter and I are working together. The VA's fixing me up. They're going to get me a special operations contract. The guys I know in our group are like, hey, we can use more guys at your age back in here now. We need to challenge the leadership from the inside. And here's the last thing. It gives me an opportunity and access to people at a higher level where I could then bring my experience and expertise from what I've been doing with leaders in my business to the table. And I can start challenging policy, and I can start challenging how we show up as a unit, how we show up as a military, because the special operations community, they're going to be the ones who are going to carry the heavy load of the big army until the big army gets fixed. So guess what they're going to be relying on? The leadership of special operations. So what do? We get people in the position to influence change in a way that challenges the DEI and the feelings and the pronouns, and get people back to what matters in the military is American sovereignty, freedom, liberties, our ability to sustain our way of life, and security. If we don't have that and everybody's more worried about their pronouns and what gender they are, then the truth is people are going to take advantage of that. And that's what's happening right now, from the border to across the seas. And I don't know. I don't know. I can talk on and on about this. I just think it's sad to hear my fellow veterans telling people don't do it at all. It's like, come on, guys. Who's going to do it if not us? I mean, at the end of the day, you talk a big game about if not me, then who? Well, if not me, then who? So truly, you expect this younger generation to do what we did? In the last, one of the things, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of rambling on here a little bit, but given my contacts and who I know in politics, there are murmurs of conscription lingering. Conscription means a limited draft. So we go to war with Iran, which looks like we might, North Korea, one of those bigger nations that has a military, and they don't have the numbers they need. Guess what they're going to do? They don't care what you feel. They're going to start plucking people. And the veteran community, if you're not broken and disabled, we're exposed till the age of 60. They're going to start calling people back that they need. We can't get these younger generations because they're all on TikTok and on drugs. So who are we going to go after? Well, let's go get the 45-year-old combat veteran who's got experience and call him and tell him we need him. And that's, to me, it's like I'd rather avoid a conscription and go volunteer for it. So that's kind of the mix of why I might be doing it as well. I think God's drawing me to do something different. Even if I don't go, I'm preparing myself and having these challenging conversations with people about it and saying, look, step up or shut up. Because at the end of the day, you can talk all you want on social media, but if you're not about it, then don't talk about it. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, I'd say, absolutely kudos on following the calling that you're getting and being willing to step into that void, right? And rather than stepping out or staying out and criticizing, being willing to step back in and change from within, and potentially, doing the job in lieu of, that 18 or 20 or 22-year-old kid, or maybe a 20-year-old kid that physically is too soft and mentally too soft to do it at this point. Right. So, I applaud all that. Let me I'll use the challenge word again. Let me ask. So I'm going to make up a scenario here that's not all that far off. And I get it, right? The high-speed mission, the brotherhood. In terms of mission, and like you get your marching orders and off you go, but you're a thinking man. And so let's say the mission is boots on the ground war in Ukraine. The Ukrainian president is a clown. It's ridiculous that we got more money going to Ukraine than fixing problems here. Is Putin a good guy? I don't think so. But, the EU is talking about censoring and putting travel restrictions on Tucker for going over to interview Putin. Right now, we're not even willing to hear another side of the story. What's really going on or has gone on in Ukraine since we helped change the government in 2014? More than just Biden's money laundering. American biolabs, who knows what's under the covers there, right? But it's hard to imagine. And by the way, we poked the bear, right? We kept poking the bear on pushing NATO east when we said we wouldn't. Like, it's not completely clear that we're not one of the bad guys in this thing. And it's hard for me to really get my head around Ukraine being a place we should send people, right? So if you enlist and off you go, like, put that back in the context of the global industrial military machine and creating conflict and division for power, wealth, money, that whole thing. Do you not feel like you're just a cog in that machine?
I think we're all a cog in this entire machine that we call the American experiment. So, so it's interesting. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad that you pushed back on that as well. And you're asking that because it is a thought I'm having. My wife and I are talking about it. It's like, look, our life is going to change. I've been an entrepreneur doing my own thing essentially for a decade and a half. Okay. It's a big sacrifice to make. Obviously it's a huge pay cut. So we laugh about that all the time, but we did okay for ourselves. So we're in a good place, right? So it's not a bad thing to have but it's a serious sacrifice. And there's a lot of those elements that are on the table that we talk about, hey, what do you consider what's going on? I mean, how are you going to feel going back into that world that's different from 20 years ago, where you're going to be dealing with a completely different power structure and how you're operating, if you will? I think truly is getting into the special operations community, though, is a different mission set than the conventional military. So that might be a different world that I'm going to partake in, even though I didn't do it the first time around. I did operate with guys that were in that realm. My middle brother was special operations himself. So I had an inside scoop, given my experience and job I did, on what the mission sets were and how we performed in Afghanistan and Iraq. Even then, if you think about it, there was a lot going on there outside of the patriotic machine that we were after September 11. There was a lot of unseen and unknown things. Man, there is a three-dimensional chess game constantly being played. And it's like Vladimir Putin. For every move he makes, there's 2 or 3 other moves you don't even see that he's got in his sleeve. So the reality is we never know. None of us can sit here and surefire go 100%. Here's how it's going to go, and this is why it's going to happen, and here's who's going to do it. The reality is, I'm looking at. I love my country, I love my family, and I love people that support and want this country to thrive. I serve for that. I serve for God, country, and family. Period. End of story. Constitution. My duty to that, the oath, doesn't expire. And if I re-enlist and raise my hand again, I'm just only going to amplify it. That is the focus. I think getting in there and being in a position from the inside and getting more people to rally around the idea of like, you know what? I'm not the only veterans doing it, by the way. There are other veterans that are rejoining. I've seen some other vets are in their 40s who are joining the military. They're not making headline news, so that's why we don't hear about it, but they are. A 42-year-old just graduated from the SFQ course. They had a 46-year-old graduate from it. They had a 51-year-old guy graduate from infantry boot camp. So we got a lot of older guys going, you know what, F it, I'm getting back in, because we need people, we need warriors, we need men to step up and get into the fight and be willing to push back, like the Spartans did with the Persians. You need to be able to push back from the inside as long as you possibly can, and at least combat that erosion so that we can get somewhat of our train back on a track. And I think Ukraine is a perfect example. I mean, the money, I know this personally. It's like we're sending them billions of dollars so they can buy our weapons. Right. Guess who gets kickbacks from those weapon sales from companies like Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and all that? Is the politicians who set up those deals. Right. So at the end of the day, it is technically a money laundering aspect of things, even though they are going to say, well, we're bringing money back into the U.S. economy. No, not really. You're bringing it back into private entities. Right. They're not, these military contractors are taking the money. We're not getting any of that. So it's always going to be an element of combat. War is always going to be business. It's always going to be for those specific reasons, those machines. I'm not doing it because I want to go to war in Ukraine. I'm going to do it because I want to get into the military and try to fight the leadership structures that are allowing us to be pulled in this direction. Because if it's not a consortium of veterans and leaders who are willing to stand up to the threats of this communistic approach, then we're done for. And that's really what it's about. I don't care about anything else but that. I care about fighting for what's right and getting into a position where I can matter in the military, even if it prolongs us in a good place for a few more years so we can get the right kind of leadership in the administration we need, et cetera. So I think I don't care. I went to Iraq and most of us go, why are we here? How come we went to Iraq and we didn't go, this is all for the politicians and their oil? We still did it because I got to experience liberation of some small groups of people. I got to do things over there where people were thanking us for it. That's small, comparatively speaking. But why were we in Iraq? There were no weapons of mass destruction. I don't care what anybody says. You know what? There were gold and money. It's like that. The reality is oil. We still did it. Did it? People go, you guys are baby killer. How could you go over there and do all that stuff? You guys are just pogs and are cogs in the machine for the Bush administration. Okay. But we didn't do that for the Bush administration. We did that for America. We thought we were doing what was right for America. And no veteran will ever tell you I joined the military because I wanted to make some politician rich, or I want to go fight in a war that we shouldn't be involved in. They do it because it's a selfless duty to the patriotic nature of our country and who we stand for. And if we're not willing to do it, then we're dead on arrival. And to me, that's worth fighting for.
Let me ask you before we run out of time about
of course.
that fight that's coming. And not everyone can or will or is able to do what you're going to do. And again, thank you. So I think the analogy to Rome is a great one. The slow crumbling of the empire from within.
From within, yeah.
Right. So what is the fight that's coming, and how can others prepare for it? Right. It's great to talk about holistic performance and how it shows up in your business and your relationship. And we talk about how hardship helps us grow. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But everything is seasonal. And none of us have lived the kind of hardship that people lived a century ago. And it looks like maybe coming back around in the next decade or so of what we're going to experience here. Yeah. So give me a little bit of your view on that and how people, families, communities can train and prepare.
That's a phenomenal question. It really is about, and I'll use this terminology, battle-proofing your life, because with the impending economic and global crisis that we are facing now, that's only going to get worse, is going to rattle people from the soul throughout their entire being. And if you are not prepared mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially, all simultaneously. If you think you're going to compartmentalize your life and you're going to focus on making as much money as possible and stacking as much rice and ammunition in your garage, but your relationships aren't optimal, your health is not 100% where you need it to be, you are not capable of understanding how to handle the unknowns of what's coming because you've never been put in those positions to be challenged when things are out of your control, then you're going to crumble under the conflicts that we're going to face, and you're not going to make it. You're going to suffer horrendously. And I think families, communities, people in general that are listening to it, whatever it is they got to find the environments and the resources that give them the opportunity to basically battle-proof themselves. I'm not saying go join a military-like boot camp week-long course and kind of do some rah-rah stuff where you punch your buddy in the face, you get wet and get yelled at. What I'm talking about is truly getting to a place where what environments, like I shared with you, a buddy of mine are putting something together for some entrepreneurs who really want to battle-proof themselves as well for this. Finding people that are willing to be by your side and train you and challenge you on a daily basis until they recognize you have accomplished that next level version of yourself. They can see no matter what is thrown your way, you know how to react to the contact, rather you respond to that contact properly rather than react to it negatively. So I would really require, and I would tell people they need to truly get back to a faith. They need to get back to a place where they realize now more than ever, it matters. And there's a lot more that is unseen that's happening that is going to mess with you. It's going to hurt. If you are not secure in your faith, if you are not trusting in God, you're not getting to a place of realizing I've got to be protected so that I can make it through these trials and tribulations. That's another thing that's going to break people in communities. So we are on the verge of another war. I think we are on the verge of World War III. I don't doubt it's going to happen. I think it's a matter of if not when. I don't know. I think we might get the access. We might get Iran, North Korea, and Russia. Who knows? We might get it all. Who knows? So as things start to wax and wane, as they are starting to show us right now, it's prudent of people to truly go, you know what? Let me strip away comforts that I'm used to right now when it comes to what I say I want, what I say I want to do, and let me get outside of what my bubble of belief and in my own world and go into a place that I typically don't go. Find yourself like looking for things that are going to challenge you, that really make you face what you have not faced throughout your entire life. Have the hard conversations with family members. Look at the pains and the traumas you've gone through and do something about resolving them. Get to a place where you are being able to build up financial stability for yourself, because if the dollar collapses or the economy changes, you can maintain and sustain your family. Sit down with your wife or your kids and really have real conversations with them. Find health professionals, performance professionals, getting people in this consortium of community to really build each other up is going to give us that a semblance of survival, if you will, when things kind of hit the fan. So if you feel drawn to join the military, go do it. Don't wait. Don't act like, well, I don't. If you feel a pull, go do it. If you feel drawn to, start your own business, go do it right now. If you feel drawn to just stop and stop doing everything, go raise family on a farm and just grow your own stuff, go for it. It's about making decisions that you're drawn to making, and trusting in the step you take is going to reveal the next step, and then the next step will reveal the next step. Be willing to embrace the suck of the unknown and trust that the challenges you're going to face are only going to make you harder and less exposed to the weaknesses that might be, in your world. And they're going to make you harder to kill, and they're going to make you more resilient, and they're going to make you more optimal, and they're going to give you the clarity of being a better decision maker, a better leader, and a better human being altogether.
That's awesome. I could not wrap it up or say it any better than that. Wylie, thank you. Trusting yourself, following that lead of where your spirit, your intuition, your faith may take you, and really pursuing those things that feel a bit uncomfortable and seeing where they lead. Lots of growth in that.
Yeah. You got to step away from the creature comforts, man. Put down the alcohol. Stop partying so much. You don't need the drug. You don't need the TV, the distraction. Change your habits. It's cliche, but you have to. The challenges I do in my life on a daily basis with my wife, I have my business partner. She challenges me every single day as well. She works in the business with me with our clients. I'm not immune to this either. I'm human. So at the end of the day, it's like, finding that set point of peace internally, it allows me to navigate life dynamically where I don't get lost in life. I don't get pulled away from what matters. And that gives me the ability to problem solve much more efficiently when I'm faced with challenges that I'm maybe not aware of that I was going to be faced, or maybe I don't even have the answers to right away. So I'm able to then take it, embrace it head on, and do something with it rather than crumble under the pressure. I want people to do the same thing. Find a coach, find a resource, listen to a podcast, go do something that's going to break you away from what you feel is normal and good for you. You might be surprised it's actually hindering your ability to get to that next level and be prepared for the impending challenges that you will face in your life, whether it's subjective or objective.
I mean, crisis is always around the corner, whether we like it or
always.
Not, right? We can prepare or not prepare. That's really our only choice.
You can buy all of the guns and ammunition and food you want. If your attitude and your mindset, if your resiliency are not at the same level as your marksmanship skills, it ain't gonna work. You won't make it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, I know if people, I'm excited to continue to follow your story and see where this path leads. But if this really resonates with folks, I will get links up to your website, Wylie McGraw. Yeah. I know you have your own podcast with a few episodes that are still yet to release on wise words of whiskey. And you mentioned Andy Stump. I know you've been on there. You've been on JLD's EO Fire. I think you were on Chris Boss's podcast. So you're out, a number of places people can probably get completely different conversational paths than what we explored here today. I know we could keep going for a long time on some interesting stuff.
Brother.
I want to thank you for your time today. Make sure to steer people towards your site and your social media and your other podcast appearances. Really appreciate you, Wylie. Thank you for coming on, just having this conversation, sharing some knowledge. And hope this leads some folks to make changes, kind of reassess themselves, trust themselves, challenge themselves, and get ready for what's next.
Yep, and surrender, let go. Trust that too. That matters. But thank you, brother, for having me. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate it.
You. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.